Cause you're listening to Jams and Tea, you won't see the show on your TV, so we talk about things musically. Cause you're listening to Jams and Tea, you're listening to Jams and Tea.
Welcome everyone to the It's Really Fucking Cold Outside podcast, where we spin the jams and spill the tea. And today I am your host, Mr. Trent Reznor, and we are going to be talking about
Some new one on me.
some fucking. We're going to be talking about some music.
We've entered the downward
today.
spiral.
We're going to be talking about the new record from Smashing Pumpkins, Sear. We're going to be talking about the new Miley Cyrus record, Plastic Hearts. And today, on the Record Club episode, which will be coming out after the main episode, we are going to be talking about my recommended album this week, which is Tom Waits' Bone Machine, the long-awaited arrival of this podcast discussing Bone Machine. And if you want to hear what I have to say about Tom Waits' discography, I have just the video for you of a Tom Waits Ranked that is on this channel right now. Go check that out to see the greater context of what I think about that man's music, and then you can come here and get a further elaborated upon opinion.
Absolutely,
oh my God.
Absolutely baller of Tom Waits to dedicate an entire album to the Pixies.
To Pixies.
Yeah. we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Had
so
to.
It's
Got
done.
it out of the way before
It's
the
gone.
actual episode. I'm glad that we did it.
Yeah.
So we can edit it out more easily.
Okay. Opening segment then. So let's talk about, as we normally do. This is, for the record, this is going to be our last main episode of the year. So our last episode of new release reviews. Next week, we'll be discussing the worst songs and the worst albums of 2020. We have our own lists and that we've compiled. And we'll also be continuing our Record Club series with Mr. Bungle's self-titled album. Which is sure to be a wild ride of an episode.
I described the feeling that this podcast has right before we started recording as the day before the last day before winter break, when you have to take all the tests, and this is the taking of the tests, whereas everything that comes after that is like the party where you get to watch a movie and eat cookies. So Mr. Bungle and the worst albums of the year, it's going to be a party.
I mean, it's strange because one of the albums we're going to talk about today is definitely going to feature next week as well.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, this is like the main episode, at least. Like, I don't think we're going to front or be any surprise. This is going to be a 2-hour-long riffing session.
Yeah. This is going to be a prolonged suicide note.
Yep.
For Billy Corgan.
So
Yes.
let's kick off as tradition with our what we've been listening to in the past week that we're not going to be talking about for the rest of this episode. Jake, why don't you lead us off?
All right. I listened to. I'll briefly just say that I listened to this just because I know that somebody on here is going to talk about it in their segment with probably a bit more verve, because they've heard it multiple times and I've only heard it once. But I listened to my first album from Dark Throne today. I listened to A Blaze in the Northern Sky.
Nocturno Culto.
Which, if you're just looking for some good fucking classic quintessential black metal, fucking go.
That's the album.
Yeah, that is literally the album. But I listened today. Well, I won't talk about anything I listened to today because that's mostly just shit I'll be talking about later anyway. But yesterday I re-listened to more black metal, but of a very, very different variety. That being Walk Beyond the Dark by Abigail Williams, which 2019 black metal album, and it's among my favorite records ever recorded. It is a fucking odyssey of insane, vaguely psychedelic black metal. The band Abigail Williams also tends to mix in ambient passages with some of their work. They do it less on Walk Beyond the Dark and more with some of their other stuff, but it's not absent, so a lot of the sound play is incredible, and it's just a beautiful record that I would recommend to all. fucking amazing album cover, rad as fuck. I listened on the note of black metal even further. I gave my first listen finally to fucking Sunbather by Death Heaven, which it's the tastiest of jams. It's the fucking
It's just one of the most like satisfying pieces of music to your ears ever.
I bought the vinyl before I finished the record.
That's right. I remember that.
And I regret nothing. It is an amazing piece of music, like the title track and the first track, the Dream House. Oh my god. I mean, it is consistently wow, like just it'll blow you away with every single track in some form or another, but specifically Dream House, Sunbather, and the Pecan Tree. Is that the last track?
Yeah.
That like brain matter expanding shit. Like amazing. I want to go back to New Bermuda and Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, which I adored when it came out, and I feel like my appreciation for that will only further, honestly. I also listened to fuck it, why not? Let's go even further into this. I listened to Twilight of the Gods by Bathory, which, if you haven't listened to Bathory, what the fuck are you doing? If you like metal and black metal, I don't... Who are you? But Twilight of the Gods, very good. Probably my least favorite record of theirs I've heard thus far, which, you know, it's like a solid 8 out of 10. It's a bit more leaning into them doing like the folk kind of Viking metal, so it's a little silly, but if you can't enjoy that, then you don't have a soul, frankly. And, you know, it's the musicians who are behind the fucking Bloodfire Death, so of course it's awesome. What the fuck are you? Who are you? I also, last but certainly not least, I will shout out the self-titled... I've been listening a lot to one of my favorite records ever recorded, Death Consciousness by Have a Nice Life. So I finally sat down and listened to Giles Corey, self-titled Giles Corey, which, I mean, it's just the most bleak thing I've ever heard in my life. It's an album with a song called No One Is Ever Going to Want You. And unironically, last 2 minutes of that song slap like a motherfucker. Like I like if it didn't make me feel like shit, I'd be like, let's fucking go. But I also just feel like
it's ironic if we're talking about song titles that you've been listening to that, because you are literally waiting for black metal records to arrive in the post.
Which also has a similar moment to that.
In the post.
Because at the very end,
in Steven Spielberg's The Post,
waiting for black metal records to come in the post. 2017.
Wow, you're gonna wait a while watching that movie.
It sucks.
Yeah, that's the in caps. I've been listening to a shitload of black metal, so that's what I've been listening to this week.
So a couple of things before you continue. I am both bemused and amused to learn that Abigail Williams is not the name of a person at all.
No,
it's the name of the band.
Well, no, it's the name of the first witch who was burned in the Salem witch trials.
Okay, that makes sense.
because I mean, of course.
Yeah, so I guess that's me now. Yay.
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to talk about is something we got recommended in the comments section. That being William Basinski's Lamentations. His latest effort. I'd been meaning to listen to this, and someone in the comments was like, hey, could you give your opinions on this? So this is for you, of course.
I will be doing that also when it's my turn.
Yes. Point is, I think as far as Basinski goes, this is pretty much about as standard as you can get for him. It sounds... He's doing his very typical tape music shtick across the record. There's an 11-minute song towards the end, which is just beautiful, classic stuff. The production and sound of it is just gorgeous, and it is so very melancholy and really just exciting to see that he has not fallen into mediocrity over his at this point 20-year career within making ambient music within a very focused lens of it.
Yeah, not exactly a kind of niche where it's particularly easy to sustain yourself over a very long period of time. And
he's
done well.
He has managed to do that on this record quite well. My one thing is I do find kind of the female vocal kind of vocalizations throughout the record just a tad generic and not as bold of an experiment or statement as some of Basinski's past work, particularly his 5-hour-long Disintegration Loop series. But it's still quite good. I'm very happy with it. I'm glad to see he's still making good music, and I enjoyed it a fair bit, even if it probably won't be something that's end of the year great, but it's still worth your time. Next thing I listened to was the first time I had ever heard an album from Husker Du, or however the hell you say their name, New Day Rising, which very very fun, energetic, emotional kind of post-hardcore record. There's that one song about skinning cats on it, which is particularly morbid and funny as hell.
Yep.
No, I enjoyed it a fair bit. It's quite good. Next, I listened to Maxon, I don't know how the hell you say it, by
Tricky.
Notable trip hop artist Tricky. Lovely record. I love the kind of dynamics of the vocals on it, the very dark sexual nature of it. It's quite a fun listen, and there's a great fucking cover of a Public Enemy song on there, and it's so cool.
Yeah, which one is it?
I know the cover's called Black Steel, but the full title, it's longer than that.
Right. Yeah. I listened to this album in high school, but I do remember it. Classic of trip hop. If you're into your Massive Attacks or music from that scene, it's pretty essential. Even if I don't love it the way I love something like Mezzanine, it's still really good.
No, it's suffers from a bit of that very typical kind of 90s bloat in that it's an hour long and 12 tracks long, and it could be 10 songs and it would be just as good, if not better, but I still really loved it. Next thing, as Jake alluded to, Dark Throne, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. It's awesome. It's just 40 minutes of lyrics I can hardly understand, guitars that sound like an electric razor, and drums that just explode your eardrums, and it's awesome. It's amazing, and I loved it. And finally, I wrapped up this week with some delving into grunge, as recommended to me a while ago. I listened to Alice in Chains' Jar of Flies EP, and it was pretty amazing. I fucking loved it. Every song is just perfect. It's emotionally gutting. And it's amazing. I can't imagine anyone how could you not like at least one song on there? It's all so
Jerry Cantrell go brr.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's me then. I want to start by talking about this, which I listened to this week, and it's my vinyl of the Clockwork Orange soundtrack.
Is the laser disc of Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange.
Exactly
I like how that makes it look like Stanley Kubrick did the music.
Well, that's the thing, because it's not technically a score album, because it has like, you know, Beethoven on it, and well, lots of Beethoven on it, some Elgar.
Beethoven.
Yeah, but I want to talk about this for the simple reason that the composer for this movie and The Shining, and I think a couple of other Kubrick films, is Wendy Carlos, who a lot of people don't appreciate is a trans musician, which she was, and an absolute pioneer of electronic music. And even though this isn't technically by her, because she only has a couple of tracks on it, I wanted to shout out her work and her as a person.
Yeah.
And the record also fucking slaps, but you know that if you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So I also listened to a couple of other records that weren't on Music Board, because Music Board is bad in that way this week. The first one is, let's see if I can get this right. I listened to Since I Left You by the Avalanches, which was a lovely sort of electronic record that I enjoyed very, very much. And I listened to In the Attic of the Universe by the Antlers.
Yes, I listened to that maybe 15 times.
God, I mean, I loved Hospice already, but this is like, it's rougher for sure, but I think that lends itself more to what I like about those records, which is it's like getting a hug from a panic attack. And
Very,
it's
very vibratey.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just got this really like emotional, intimate feel, and the more sort of rough lo-fi nature of In the Attic of the Universe really lends itself to that kind of well, it's like comparing, I hate to say it, All Hail West Texas to Tallahassee, even though they came out the same year. One is like more intimate and it captures the vibes just that little bit better, in my opinion.
Knowing how few things I have to commit suicide with.
We haven't even started talking about Sear.
No, sorry. Continue, please.
I would like to toss out the reason I did not talk about In the Attic of the Universe, despite my listening to it a lot, is because we are going to be talking about the Antlers in a B-Sides episode next year, so look forward to that, and then you will get to hear my thoughts on that.
I listened to Suburban Light by the Clientele, which I
Me too.
fucking adored. It's just so lovely and just warm and wonderful, and I loved it so much.
My vinyl of it is down there, but I'm too lazy to pick it up.
And I listened to the Breakup album from a band I talked about previously on segments like this, a band called Cry Wank, who previously have pioneered a sound called anti-folk, which existed long before them, but they're like one of the most famous bands to do it, which is sort of defined as a reaction against where folk was in the 60s, of being very sort of insular and idiosyncratic and dense. And in the 80s, there were a lot of folk bands that wanted to basically make it more raw, like what punk rock was doing. And yeah, early Cry Wank records are like that. I sent Jake a track called Song for Guilty Sadist, which is...
fantastic song.
Yeah, just very sad. It's like a song about having like a partner who wants to be dominated and feeling very uncomfortable with that, and it plays off very modern ideas of gender dynamics in a really interesting way, and it's just really sad. But this album called it's their breakup album. It's called Fist Me Till Your Hand Comes Out My Mouth, which sounds like it's funny, and then you hear the line on the album and it's like an expression of like pathetic self-hatred.
Love it.
And it's and it's I said in my review on Music Board that it is closer to like Ultra Visitor than folk. It's such a sonic divergence for the band. It's such an incredible note to go out on, because it's just so diverse and weird and full of ideas, and it goes in so many different directions, and it feels like they have finally let all of their creativity out in one huge supernova to explode the band with, and they've said goodbye with it. And it's not a perfect record, but It's a perfect way to go out. So yeah, that's me. That's my short Cry Wank review, and now I'm done.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so what have I been listening to this week? I've actually got quite a few things, so I'll try and get through them nice and quickly. I listened to Death, Individual Thought Patterns. Again, continuing my journey through Death, and it's you know,
Bass.
it's like
Bass.
what do you say when you're on a journey through a band that's just so evidently, clearly one of the greatest of all time? Like you just you it's such a surreal feeling to know that I'm experiencing that in real time, and they have not let me down in the slightest yet. Individual Thought Patterns is a fantastic stellar record. I also listened to because I'm trying to play catch up with August, who's also doing the same kind of thing. I listened to Rush's Presto, which is is an album.
It certainly is.
It
Unfortunately.
get the track list up here really quickly. So it starts
Show
off.
me, don't tell me.
Yeah, it starts off with 3 great songs, really good songs. The Pass, especially, is one of just the best Rush songs ever, which I was not expecting to hear a best Rush song ever, a contender on this album, and yet here it is. And then the rest of it is just shit. Like there's a couple of bright spots. The title track is all right. Available Light's all right. And there's very little on it that's like terrible, but there is some stuff that's pretty bad. Like Superconductor is awful. The shitty fucking synthesized bass on Scars is a fucking
It's
abhorrent.
just an album that feels like it's comprised almost entirely of songs they made at other points in their career.
You know, I kind of get that. And there's also that Anagram song.
That song.
Geddy Lee tries
something.
to like create these lines where the words are like just anagrams of each other.
Yeah, that's right.
It's really strange.
It's interesting. I mean, I respect for trying.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst Rush record I've heard up to this point. But the highlights are still, you know, worth the price of admission. Like I said, The Pass is stunning. What else? I listened to, caught up with, I think playing Copycat again. I listened to Slayer's Rain and Blood, which is something I overlooked for a long time. I fucking loved it. Talk about a record that is just like, there's no fat on this thing at all. It just hammers for like less than half an hour, and I adored the shit out of it. A record I want to shout out, one of the best ones I listened to this week that isn't as widely loved. I listened to Prefab Sprout's album From Langley Park to Memphis. So Prefab Sprout are this British kind of like pop / folky band in the 80s that had a string of great records. And this is one of the best of them. Incredibly bombastic 80s pop with a real kind of British and sheen to it. Like if you're a fan of like mid 80s Kate Bush, for example, you'll really dig this album. It's very fun, like super fun, and it's also like power poppy and cool, and I dug it a lot. I listened to, on Jake's recommendation, Slifts a really fun and interesting and texturally fascinating psych rock record. It was a little on the longer side, but ultimately I found that forgivable just for how incredible the sound was. Really dug that one.
I'm really glad
I could show that to everybody here. I'm
really glad that
happy.
loads of people on this podcast have listened to it. You know, it's such a good record.
Yeah, I listened to I also listened, like August, I listened to Basinski's new record, Lamentations. I think I I feel basically the same as August does, except I'll say I probably like it a little bit more. I feel like, for example, I quite enjoyed the incorporation of the sampled female vocals in the back half of the record. I do think it's actually a bit of a back-loaded record in the sense that a lot of my favorite stuff was the longer stuff towards the end of it. But it was still quite good, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I could easily see myself putting it on again pretty much any time. Another record I listened to on the recommendation of a mutual of mine named Connor, but I also believe this album is person core to at least one other person here, and that is the Weaker Thans album, Reconstruction Site.
I talked to Jake in the DMs about that album just this week.
Well, what a coincidence, because I was DM'd by my friend Connor, who said,
Wow.
have you heard the Weaker Thans? You need to listen to them. And so I
Yeah, you
listened
do.
to Reconstruction Site, and I enjoyed it quite a lot.
I have a point about that album that I want to bring up. Is that there's a song on that record called Vatute the Cat Explains Her Departure. And that is a sequel song to a song that appeared on a previous record called Plea from Vatute the Cat, that some of you may know because Pup covered it on the Stereo Gum record.
Yeah, I think you might be getting wires crossed, because this is definitely the album that has Plea from Virtute on it.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of a different one. You're right. Excuse me. But listen to Vatute the Cat Explains Her Departure, because it'll break your heart after listening to that song.
Yeah,
confirm.
Yeah. So that song was easily the standout of this record. A beautiful track. I loved it. Also listened to continued / finished my Opeth journey with Watershed. It's again, it's the whole death thing where it's like, how do you set expectations at this point when you're going through a run like this? Like, I knew it was going to be great, and yet still they somehow managed to surprise me with how great it was.
Porcelain Heart. Drop mic.
Jesus fucking Christ. And what's the song before it? Burden, that's it. Yeah, I couldn't remember its name for a minute. That song is just out of this world. One of the most beautiful pieces of metal that the band had ever done. And then you also have stuff that's more aggressive and stark, like Heir Apparent and in the back half of Hesse and Peel. There's just so much good shit on this record. It's another great Opeth record. Yeah, and I find myself drawn towards records like this one and Ghost Reveries in a way I wasn't expecting. Like, I knew they would be great, but I wasn't expecting to gravitate to these two as strongly as I have. And yeah, I would recommend them to anyone, even if you haven't heard earlier Opeth, because they're just really, they get your attention and they hold it like a vice.
The last Opeth record, they really should make another one sometime soon. It's been 12 years,
one day,
guys.
you know.
Yeah, I would love another Opeth record.
I would too.
And one more thing I will mention in passing is I listened to Sam Hunt's Southside this week, which
I listened to that. I forgot that, but
all I'm going to say is that currently it is my second least favorite album of the year, and we're going to be talking about number one now. Morgan, I know you're quite keen to set the scene here and establish what we're about to discuss and what we're about to embark upon. So I'm just going to shut up and let you do that.
Cool. So if you're here, you probably know who the Smashing Pumpkins are. If I can get through this without burping 800 times. Chicago alternative rock band came up in the early 90s. One of the biggest groups of that time. Who have pretty much done nothing but or one member in particular has done nothing but embarrass themselves for the past 20 years. So, Sear, the 2020 Smashing Pumpkins double album, somehow technically a sequel record to 2018's Shiny and Oh So Bright Volume 1. Yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and crack this nut open. We're doing the Smashing Pumpkins B-side episodes next week. It's gonna be a two-parter covering 11 albums. I've heard all but one of them now. And if that one that I haven't heard is somehow worse than Sear, then this is the worst band of all time. And like I've gone on here and rambled and ranted about so many records I hate this year. You know, we sat here through Idols, through Biffy Clyro, through the Pineapple Thief. I didn't think it could get worse. But just leave it to one Billiam Patrick Corgan, the man who cannot spell, to just turn everything around. This is almost impressive. I feel like white noise is too gentle a term to describe what's actually happening here.
Well, white noise can be pleasant.
No, this is gentrified white noise.
Black dresses are quaking.
I like this. I've never in my life, not even for the Pineapple Thief, have I heard a record that's is so laser focused on sounding like nothing. This is the most dry, impactless, dead. I would describe it as a dead album. I feel like most albums have some sort of life to them, even if they're bad or even if they're boring, they at least have some life to them. This is music written by a corpse. And like, not even like a reanimated one, not even like a ghost, because that might be interesting. Hell, that sounds pretty cool. I'd love to hear that music. This is a record written by a corpse in the atheist sense of the word, in that they are goo now and they have nothing to offer. Let's run through some of these tracks real quick.
Must we?
This is dopamine. This is my
we're
reward
here.
for the album.
Don't ever say the word dopamine to me again. Yeah, but one of the two lead singles that they released kicks off the album, "The Color of Love."
Spoiler, it's gray. Like the album.
Oh, I don't know how you would guess that, Tyler. It's not like fucking he tells you like 75 times.
It's not like it's one of the 7 words used in that song.
The album, 7 words.
The album.
Yeah. I think back to Stand Inside Your Love, which is like,
oh, it's a great song.
Just one of their best songs. And it does evoke a similar feeling to the first time you hear the title track on Green Day's Father of All. Because it's like, like, to anyone, Tyler's having an episode and I completely understand. I'm just going to let him work that out.
Let him grieve.
Yeah.
5 stages, man.
It's just like to anyone who says that people don't change, I want to show them Stand Inside Your Love and then play them The Color of Love. And just it fundamentally could not have been written by the same person.
Or even like the song Love on Melancholy. There's a song called Love on Melancholy, and it is infinitely better.
Literally everything on any of their good albums is astronomically better than this.
And like it's like if you listen to it with like one earbud in and you're not really paying attention, you're just like, yeah, this is bad, but like so innocuous, I can't really have strong feelings on it. And then you really listen to it, and it's just such a tribute to vapidity and nothing. It just sounds like nothing, and it is maybe the best track on the album.
Handily.
It's the least horrible song on the album.
It's the best one by virtue of you can like vaguely remember what it's about.
It has a semi-captivating synth line that it sounds crap, but like at least there's a melodic sensibility
It's an idea.
to it.
It's a bad idea, but it's an idea.
That's it,
Speaking of bad ideas, Confessions of a Dopamine Addict is like it's particularly fascinating because I don't think it is a song that could be made by anyone else, and yet it still sounds like nothing. It's like the most notable thing about it is that it's vaguely annoying, and I'd rather be listening to something else. And just even the title alone, Confessions of a Dopamine Addict, like what are you talking about?
Shut the fuck up.
At least you spelled all the words right. I mean, good lord.
Yeah, no, it's just like how he spells the title track, not the first song, Color of Love, the British way.
How about Witch? 2 T's. He spelled it with 2 T's and a Y.
Don't worry, I have things to say about that song.
Oh, that's
Oh.
But also, what is seer? Like, what does that mean?
Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Does it even come up in the song?
Can I just like put a fucking just like listening to this is a particularly kind of maddening because Morgan said it himself that it's just like when you really sit down and listen to it, it's a tribute to vapidity, which is fucking perfect. It's exactly what it's like. This can only be even moderately enjoyed as background noise, and even then it is insipidly obnoxious. But I was sitting there and I was just like, I don't fucking know what to say about this. And thankfully that's changed since then. But I was like, I panicked and I was like, this is an album that is 20 songs long. It is an hour and 12 minutes in length. And I do not know if I can summon a single word to say about it. I don't know what can be said about this. So I decided to try and look at the lyrics.
Oh no.
You oaf.
What lyric?
This I just want to say this just so we can get it out of the way so we don't have to worry about it anymore. Every single line on this album means fucking nothing. None of these songs are about anything. It is about vague, impressionistic nonsense. There are not stories. There are not ideas. There are not vaguely like, this isn't even like a thing where you could, make an argument like, oh, the Twilight sad, you kind of gotta be a little, No, this is nothing. The songs don't even have the fucking common fucking decency to, like, separate themselves from each other. Like, if I have to hear Billy Corgan say the word love or heaven one more time, I'm gonna find him, and I'm gonna break his bald fucking head open, and I'm going to drink his brain. I hate it so much.
I mean, well, it is a bunch of goop, so drinking it would be no problem.
Yeah,
mean,
just wanted to
and
get that out of the way.
if-
The lyrics are nothing. They're nothing.
If you drink his brain, I'm going to pump your stomach. I'm not letting that linger
no,
inside you.
Thank
That's,
you.
That's a fair
Please.
point. That's a
This
fair
is what
point.
friends do for friends.
So,
Friends don't let friends drink, Billy.
so that brings us to the title track and lead single. So much like "Color of You, Love," you listen to it like halfway, and you're just like, "This is useless," but like, I'm not gonna be mad at it. That's how I was the first time I heard it. Whenever that single came out. But even more so than Color of Love, if you really look at it, you really listen. I mean, not only are the lyrics just nothing, the song is an aesthetic nightmare. I mean, like, I want Tyler to issue a formal apology to Rush for knocking on Presto sounding bad, because like this is the final form of the shitty parts of Presto for 70 minutes. And the worst part about this is that I kind of like the main synth hook in the song. It keeps coiling its way around my brain to, but it sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even, like, texturally, it's hideous, and I despise it. I mean, like, what is Corgan doing on this song vocally?
He says
Why-
we're,
I
he
ain't
says
touching
we're
that.
on the verge a lot.
There's if I want to time travel to 1995 and tell people who are falling in love with melancholy for the first time and say to them
I wanna-
that in 25 years this same man will write a chorus with the main line of "Say I done told you."
I want to read from the press release about this from Billy about this song specifically. Sear is dystopic folly, one soul against the world sort of stuff, set against a backdrop of shifting loyalties and sped up time. To me, it stands as both hopeful and dismissive of what is and isn't possible with faith.
Oh,
Wait,
go
so
jerk
he
off to the
made-
Rorschach segments of Watchmen more, you libertarian weirdo.
Oh my
Shut
god.
the
He basically
fuck
made-
up.
In Time, starring Justin Timberlake.
Oh, that's
I
just
I
the
love
worst
that
thing
little
I've
press
ever
release
heard.
because it's like perfectly meaningless in the same way
Yeah.
that all of the writing on the album is.
So yeah, that's the title track. I'm going to listen to a little bit of Dulcet in E right now because I have no fucking idea what it sounds like.
Oh, like I can hear.
Oh, it
the
sounds like
faintest-
everything. It sounds like everything else on the album.
Can I
What a s-
just talk about how there's a repeated lyric on this that fucking kills me? From our tree swings an apple, a pear, or a candle.
Oh,
What are you talking about?
This is where we reach a stretch of songs that, honest to God, are the same song for roughly 40 minutes.
yeah.
Not even a tempo change, really. Just mid-tempo, shitty synths, nonsense words. And this run goes from Dulcet and E to Birch Grove. So let's just skip over that, other than to say that I want Mary Elizabeth Winstead to kill Billy Corgan
Yeah.
for naming a song Ramona.
God, I fucking hate that song so much. It's
the-
so
the-
awful.
The way he sings Ramona in that song,
Ramona.
it's
Love
It's
how you
the-
made him British in that rendition.
yeah, it's bad.
Okay. Yeah, terrible. So we get to Witch, and it's like, oh, a guitar on the Smashing Pumpkins album? I've been saved. No, it's the
It's
worst guitar
bad.
ever recorded.
It's really bad.
I'm not exaggerating. I study this shit like I'm paid to. This is the worst guitar tone I've ever heard in my life. Once again, the man forgets how to spell or disappears so far into his own rectum that this is just how he sees words. This is like some form of ass dyslexia. I don't know. I want to use Purple Blood as an excuse to bring up Jimmy Chamberlain, who after leaving the band about 3 times, once for being fired because he was on heroin, once because the band broke up, and once because he just fucking didn't feel like it after Zeitgeist.
Yeah, basically.
This is what you come back for? Who do you owe money to? Are you in witness protection? What is this? Why? This man has the greatest job in the world because he gets to come into work, and he does nothing, absolutely nothing, and I don't know whether or not to be mad at him or Billy Corgan. So I've decided to be mad at both of them. Because the Corgan described Chamberlain as his creative soulmate at some point. I think it was for the Machina album cycle, which it makes sense because the way those two worked together in their prime was, I mean, it's like him, Iha, and Corgan. Those three are like at their prime, Getty, Alex, and Neil. Like just complete and utter perfect synergy. So it's at some point you would think that after 30 years, you would think that Chamberlain, if he cared, would sit Corgan down at some point and go, "Hey, why have you given me nothing to do?" Like, if Corgan is such a authoritarian douchebag in terms of running this band, just leave, man, for your own sake. Please leave.
Look, I'm being a cynic about this, but from what I read from like interviews and stuff, it seems to me that like Jimmy is just fully on board. Like that they just I don't think this is
What
a
is
case
his
of
contribution to the album? Tell me, sonically, where? Where is it? Where?
I don't know. I don't think this is a case of like Corgan like holding people against their will and making them do shit they don't want to do. I just think this is a case of like a bunch of people who are washed up, have no interesting ideas and no creative drive, nonetheless feeling the need to continue to enact some kind of legacy through their misguided lens of what good music is. Like I don't have the patience for. Yeah, I just think everyone involved in this is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Final track, Minerva.
And may God damn you to hell for the sounds you make.
I believe that Tyler said in our group chat yesterday, "How dare you stand where they stood?"
Referring, of course, to Deftones, who have
Yes,
a much better song by this name.
Deftones have been public about the fact that records like Siamese Dream heavily influenced their songwriting career, and like I'm reminded of like Dave Filoni on the Clone Wars with his like George Lucas worship, when for the past 10 years George Lucas had done nothing but embarrass himself with those prequel movies. It's like the student has surpassed the teacher. in every way. So much so that Ohms is the best album of the year, and this is handily the worst. So, like, to summarize, what does all this mean? What did I suffer 72 minutes of this shit for? Because I would have done it regardless of the podcast. Because, like, after a certain point, you feel compelled. It's almost like a sunk cost fallacy with a band like this.
Yeah.
It's like I have spent so much of my life listening to Siamese Dream and Gish and Adore and Melancholy that, like, those what is that, 4 records, I'll listen to pretty much anything you make. And especially after, like, not knowing or caring about his political views at this time. I was a Billy Corgan defender for several years. Like, it was like, look, the guy's just misguided when he's bad. Like, Zeitgeist is a terrible album, but it's an album with ideas, and it sounds like something. Like they were going for something and they just failed, and it happens. It happens to geniuses sometimes. So I like one of the best songwriters, maybe the best guitar player of the '90s. Like, I was on the train, man. No matter how fucking nuts he was, it was almost a Kanye type relationship with him, particularly in his, like, public eye thing. Like when he was, like, messing around with Courtney Love on Twitter in, like, 2008. It's hilarious.
Jesus.
It's apt that this comes a few days before my 21st birthday, because this is like the death knell to my childhood heroes.
Oh my god.
These people are not. I trust no one anymore.
Jesus.
At this point, I realize that you can never, after Idols, especially after Green Day this year, I realized that you can never, ever underestimate an artist you love's capacity to make something that spits in your face. That doesn't mean you have to go into every artistic endeavor you consume like, I'm just, oh, this is the one where it's going to be bad. Oh no, that's no way to live. I'm not saying to live like that. I don't live like that. Mank came out today. That's David Fincher, and I trust him with my life. But, like, I'd probably kill the dude if we spent more than 2 minutes together. So, yeah, just admire someone's songwriting. Admire their craft, admire their artistry. Personally, I cannot get behind artists anymore as people. I mean, Letitia Wright today was tweeting some anti-vaxxer shit. These people are not on our side. They're just not. And this 72-minute monolith to all of the stupid fucking ideas that have been running around in Billy Corgan's head for probably his entire life to some degree is just a great big sign poster to just, there's a sincere possibility that everything you have ever loved in your life will kick you in the nuts. Thank you.
That was undoubtedly one of my favorite screeds this podcast has ever given,
Yeah, that was,
yielded. And
brilliant.
I could never hope to live up to such a thing, frankly. Because honestly,
God knows
I don't
wanted to see everyone else try.
Cyr is the worst thing I have heard in 2020, because it's like the Pineapple Thief record in that it is vacant, but it instead elects not to double down on vacancy, but to just tinge it to be vaguely annoying. I still need to listen to like 5 more Smashing Pumpkins albums, and after listening to Sear nearly 3 times, I am sick of Billy Corgan's voice. I can't stand it anymore. He has always sounded kind of iffy. He's always kind of like, that's always a bar for entry with Smashing Pumpkins. It's just kind of Billy Corgan in general, like as a person. But his voice is it's a bit squeaky. It's a bit odd. And records like Siamese Dream, they get over that because they mix everything in a way that just sort of makes it work.
But also,
And
like,
on
he
here-
uses his vocals better on that. Like, if you think about a song
Yeah.
like Disarm, for example, which is very
Yes.
much based around his voice carrying it, like, he does an amazing job. And it's like he just loses touch with how to make his voice work around the music that he's making.
Yeah, because, like, it doesn't sound any different, technically. Like, it sounds very much the same. He's held it up over the years quite well, in fact. Then you put on The Color of Love, and you get, and the color of your hair is gray. And it's maddening. It's maddening, and it all sounds like it. It all sounds the same. Every song sounds like it is piecemeal, created by the exact same synth sound, like in GarageBand, and maybe like you tinker with it, you like pitch it down like one tiny little bit, but you just take the synths and you just cascade it, and you just shove it, and you build songs entirely around this cheap, airy, light-sounding synth, and it made me sit down and just be like, I really was too hard on Jessie Ware. I really was. And I didn't think that anything could make me say that, because I wanted to hold on to that opinion, because it's a fucking meme and it's funny. But this isn't funny. This is misery. Every hook is annoying. Everything sounds the same, and anytime you notice anything, it is because it is annoying you. And it's so fucking long. That is the worst thing about it. Make no mistake. Green Day's Father of All is a terrible record devoid of everything, that goes back on everything that band stands for, and I could go and will go into a rant as to why that is one of the worst pieces of art I have consumed all year long, is that it offends me on many levels as a fan of their music, as a fan of art, and it pisses me off, and it spits in the face of the spirit of what they've done. But God bless, it's a merciful 24 minutes long. This is masturbatory. This is ugly. This is garish. It's nothing. I can't even, like, this is all I have. Like, this, once we're done with this, talking about this is not, like, this, I don't think about you at all. I really don't. It's going to evaporate from my mind. Any anger I can summon is being summoned right now. It disappears from me. He keeps singing about shit. He keeps talking about fucking, like, these recurring lyrical themes of, like, love, heaven, gods, and referencing all of these big, lofty, portentous things, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? What is the point of this? What are you getting at? What are you scratching at? What you make a record this long, and you make it after an album like the last record before this is fucking less than a half an hour. Why? Why is it like this? You can only assume logically that this is intended as like a purpose, as an artistic thing, and it can only come from a mind so warped that they, like, I don't even think that it's because Billy's, like, or just the band is lacking in inspiration. I think that this is a malformed, disgusting mutation that is a result of everyone just, they are so up their own asses. They are so convinced that what they are doing is good. They are convinced that it's good enough to be 70 minutes long, because if you didn't care, then they'd make it like the last record, and it would be less than 30 minutes, and nobody would give a shit. And instead, it's this. And honestly, like, look at the album cover. Look at this garish, fucking transparent graphic design is my passion ass shit. Like, look at it. That's what the album sounds like. You can see right through it. I feel like if I took a pencil and poked it into the mixes of these songs, they would deflate. Like if you fucking blew up a condom like a balloon. It's bad. Fuck Billy Corgan. I hate it. Next.
Real
Shocked
quick.
I managed to talk about that for more than a minute.
And I realized I'm not done.
Oh God, yes!
Oh
Give
my
it to
God.
You've gotten onto the subject of Billy Corgan as a vocal performer, as a presence. So it sounds to me like he's been like seeing vocal coaches for a while now. Probably because what he was doing in the 90s wasn't sustainable in any way.
Yeah.
This is noticeably different in tone and control. And it's like he poured Germex all over his vocal cords. It's sanitized. This sounds like nothing. The only reason it sounds like something is because it sounds like boring Billy Corgan. Adore is one of the most vocally incredible records of that entire decade. He sounds amazing on that album. This is... Give up. Retire.
Log off.
If I were you, I would delete this.
I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
Carry
I am hesitant to remind you all. You've probably forgotten at this point because I know I shared this news when it first came out. But Billy is hard at work on the final album in the trilogy that began with Melancholy and
No!
Machina.
No!
It
I
is
refuse.
It is going to be 33 songs long.
No.
Oh my God! What?
The fucking, like, the audacity. The audacity. You fucking imbecile.
Look,
Alright.
it might never turn out the way he wants it
God
to.
can only hope.
So let's do some real quick math. 72 divided by 20 is 3.6 as an average track length. Multiply that by 33, you've got an album that's 118 minutes long.
Listen. If we cover that record on here, I am quitting the show.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this album is, of course, a 72-minute long obelisk dedicated to the 7,000 story tall skyscraper Billy Corgan has constructed up his own ass. Yeah,
I love the penthouse suite there.
I want to tweet that. I want to treat this like slam poetry. Like I want to.
It is impressive that this man has written a 72-minute long album with 20 tracks, all of which he does to the tune of the Along the Long Man series of commercials. The first time I listened to this on 3 separate occasions. The first time I turned it off at Ramona, thinking I was about halfway through, and I was like, okay, I can't deal with this. I gotta fucking fuck with this later. Then I learn it's a 20-track long album. And I'm like, wait, track 6? 6? I've been sitting here for 12 hours. It's just a void of time. It like space is warpable, time is bendable, or whatever the hell.
Yeah, as a fun fact for you, this album is actually longer than the gap between Machina 2 and Zeitgeist.
There is nothing good here. Everything that's like even approaching an idea just doesn't happen. It's like there's like no difference between these songs. It's like they start at some vague point and we like start in media res with these songs and we end in media res. They just go nowhere.
The way
Yeah.
the first song just kind of cuts off at the end.
Yeah.
It just stops for no reason. It just is an album that like seeps into the background. It desperately like crawls and claws its way, using every song as an excuse to go to the background of your mind. You're just staring into the void, and the void doesn't stare back. You just realize you are the void. You are 99% empty space. You are fucking nothing, Billy Corrigan.
You are Julian
Ugh,
Casablancas in the voids.
Don't even like that. That's
Yeah,
a good band.
Yeah, it is.
It just pisses me off in such a deep way when I realized I hated it more than Southside. And that is an album I despise. Southside is an album about something. Granted, that something is misogyny, but it's something.
It really is.
It's a fragment of an idea. This is just 72 minutes of nothing. I cannot stand a second of it. It is just a waste of everyone's time. The guitars, anytime there is a guitar for like 2 seconds, it sounds
Guitars
like ass.
plural?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't remember fuck all about
this dude is so up his own ass for these guitar tones. He probably layered about 15 different tracks over each other to make this sound.
Right.
You know what you get when you do that? You get a song that sounds like Dookie.
Yeah.
You get fucking Be Here Now. Which this actually, and spiritually,
Listen.
has more than a couple similarities with.
Listen. Shut your mouth.
I will not.
Oasis has never even approached this level of debauchery and complete and utter nonsense.
He's not wrong.
When the Gallagher brothers were literally beating the shit out of each other, it was still better music than this.
Yes. Barely.
Okay.
Tyler, like, fucking searching through the file cabinet of his brain, and then just...
I'm sorry, like this is worse than Be Here Now, but not by much.
I've got like one more comment, and
Please.
then I'm done. And that is about the mix of this album. Just the gain just sounds like it was turned down so low. It's just barely audible at points, and it all sounds the same, so that doesn't help. But even if the gain was turned up and you could hear anything that's happening, the drums are just so blistering within the mix. It sounds like someone just recorded camera audio of like drums in a garage, except it's a drum machine, so it clearly wasn't. They just like put a raw like drum track in there and it sounds like ass.
Drums,
yeah, whatever. It's something. I don't know.
Frank Ocean's Blonde has more percussive impact than this album.
Sam Hunt had the decency to be short.
Like,
Saoirse, what did you make of the Smashing Pumpkins album?
I made a tweet the other day that they have achieved the infinite album, and that as much as you want it to end, it never does. And
Each song, there isn't any very long songs, but they all feel like they're 15 minutes long. And the album is already like 75 minutes long. 75 minutes long. And I listen to each individual track, and it's this track a year long or a century? And it just makes an already like bloated carcass of a monstrosity all the more depressing. And it's not like this record is totally devoid of ideas. Like there is occasionally a synth line, if you were to transcribe it and then play it on a piano, might sound vaguely okay. But the actual way that the synth is being played and mixed and the song around it, it makes every good idea poisoned by dint of being here and in Billy Corgan's head. I feel sorry for his therapist because they would have to have listened to this bullshit every week.
Bold of you to assume he has one.
Probably true.
He probably believes it's a fucking pseudoscience.
I mean, it's hard to get around the fact that this cover is very obviously homaging the iconic cover of Atlas Shrugged, which is immediately a piss take, an unintended piss take, but a piss take.
Well, the last album he put out is the exact same thing. Shiny has the same
more overtly
design.
even.
Yeah.
And
clearly part of this era.
I feel like
Whatever
the
that
problems
means.
of this record reflect the problems with objectivism, in that it's a bunch of meaningless nothing that probably sounds real clever to the person saying it, but that it's like you read Atlas Shrugged and there's a monologue that goes on for 100 pages in a 1,000-page novel that explains the philosophy of objectivism, and it's written like third grader. And this album is in many ways the same. My point here is that Ayn Rand has ruined music. I feel like Open Mike Eagle must have heard the demo tapes of this album and then wrote Head Asuka. Just to go into like my personal music outings for a minute. This week has been hell in terms of making music for me. It's just this one song that I just couldn't seem to get right. I did today, which was incredible. I felt very proud. But the reason that I did that and pushed through it that much is that I had to listen to this album, and I was just constantly motivated by the fact, like, you know, I'm remembering the piece of ass I have on my GarageBand page more than this. So, and that gave me the motivation to go back and make it good. So at least something positive came out of this piece of shit. And I want to end by quoting the genius that was Billy Wilder. Not Billy Wilder, Gene Wilder.
Brothers.
He is
William
a corrupter
Patrick
of the
Wilder.
mind.
The section 37B of the contract signed, it states clearly that all offers shall become null and void if, and you can read it for yourself in photostatic copy, I, the undersigned, shall forfeit all rights, privileges, and licenses herein contained, etc., etc. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You stole music. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. I said good day. This album sucks my ass. I shouldn't even have a penis, and Billy Corgan can suck it.
Oh, that's the line. That's the line. Of
That's it. There it is. Everybody can go home.
Just mail Billy Corgan your discarded dick.
Put it on your head.
Eat it.
I'm
Eat the
gonna-
food, Tina.
Tina, come get some dinner.
Billy, I can only imagine that Billy Corgan has a person in like a cage somewhere, and every time he makes a new record, he goes, it listens to the record or it gets the hose again.
I
That
just wanna say
that person is James Ehawk.
I just want to say that Jake doing that Napoleon Dynamite and Morgan doing that Napoleon Dynamite impression was the exact inverse of the emotions I felt listening to this record.
Oh, that means that's the nicest thing I've ever done for anybody.
When I was a kid, I could toss a pigskin over them mountains. I've seen that movie in like 7 years.
I'll buy some of this stuff. Fundraising, get money for college. Your mom goes to college.
You know, it's funny that reference should be made. Weirdly, like because when I first saw that movie, I promise this tangent has relevance. When I first saw that movie,
Even if it didn't.
I first saw that movie because it was the favorite movie, or one of the favorite movies of like my first major girlfriend in school, and we watched it together. And the relevance of that is that this is also the person who introduced me to the Smashing Pumpkins. And so
He
I
has
was
a lot to answer for, is what you're saying.
no, actually, I have nothing but nice things to say about this particular person. Well, mostly nice things to say about this particular person, which I'm
Except
not
for the
going to
fact
go.
that she was a huge bitch.
I'm not going to go down that road. My point is, this person introduced me to the Smashing Pumpkins when I was 15, and it was records like Siamese Dream and Melancholy. And I'll talk about this when we do our Smashing Pumpkins discography episode. But basically, they became the soundtrack to like falling in love for me. As corny as that is, like, you know, if you're listening to music and shit and you happen to be experiencing some kind of like massive thing in your life concurrently, those two things become associated. And it wasn't just the Smashing Pumpkins that I associated with this particular time. This person was super into like alt rock and grunge, and they're the person you can thank for me having listened to Soundgarden at the same age. But anyway, so yeah, it's like the Smashing Pumpkins for me have this association with a certain feeling of like bliss and happiness, and it's the relationship of those feelings with like darkness as well, because there is like a gothic edge to some of the Pumpkins 90s stuff as well, like especially on Adore, for example. But yeah, like to me, that music is the music of the Pumpkins has always felt like romantic and like you're feeling things quite immensely. And I even think that carries over into some of the more questionable material um, of the later period, even if it's muddled by the fact that this Corgan became musically adrift and his way of writing drifted into meaningless sap, pseudo philosophical nonsense, and Sear is loaded with that. But the thought that was really kind of taking me over while I was listening to this and thinking about it, and it's a thing that I think about, or that I've thought about, you know, every time I listen to a late period Pumpkins record, is like what the Smashing Pumpkins actually means, like as a band, because since the 2000s and Machina era and the disastrous fallout from that record's lack of success, what the Smashing Pumpkins is like as an identity is kind of gone through a lot of strange times. Like basically Corgan resurrected that name for Zeitgeist, bringing Jimmy on to do that record, even though what they were going for musically and in terms of like spirit and stuff was like light years away from what they'd done before. And so basically ever since then, the Smashing Pumpkins has been the label that Billy Corgan has used for whatever music he wants to get attention. Basically, it doesn't matter what the underlying spirit or ethos of it is. It doesn't matter what the sound is. It doesn't matter what, you know, it might mean to the fans. None of that matters. For Billy, it's about how can I get the art I want to do the most exposure it can possibly have. And Sear is the apotheosis of that. It is an magnificently tragic exercise in vanity. Really kind of struggling to fathom the process of putting this together and releasing it. The levels of sheer blindedness you've got to have to how what the art you're doing actually sounds like, and what the appeal of it might be. Really kind of staggering new levels of just the lack of self-awareness that it takes to write these. Well, right, you could, okay, not necessarily write these 20 songs. Like, songwriters write shit all the time and not all of it gets released, but to actually make these songs the way that they have been made and to deem them fit to release as this one singular project is an act of astounding hubris, and just really career suicide. And I know that it's not intended to be that, because I know that Corgan is moving full bore supposedly with these new projects that he's working on. But you do have to wonder. It's a marvel to think about how someone could make this and not in the particular context that it's been made, and not consider it career suicide. And what will be even more stunning to me is that if it does not prove to be career suicide. I've seen, this is getting mostly negative reviews. Let's be clear. It's not, the critics aren't like tripping over themselves to praise this like they sometimes do with stuff that is mystifyingly bad but has some kind of narrative that draws journalists towards it. Now, people think this is bad, although I have seen some reviews that are perhaps not as negative as they should be. But you do have to wonder, like, I need the impact of this to be severe. Like, I need the response to this to be unified, and I need it to be clear, and I need it to be no. Stop. This is garbage. This is shit. This does not belong anywhere. It is too anodyne and sanitized to fit in a trash heap. That you have deemed it fit to release is a stunning indictment of any artistic judgment that anyone might have perceived you to have at this point. And that you are currently working on a 33 song completion of the trilogy that began with Melancholy and Machina, the second of which you still to this date haven't even technically finished. What is wrong with you? Like, people say shit like Kanye's a narcissist, like one of the biggest narcissists in music, and but like, at least Kanye's issue is that he doesn't put out music. That's what people get mad at him for. He does other shit. And Billy Corgan is kind of like the inverse of that. He kind of has all these shitty beliefs and stuff that you can, and he's had shitty behavior and shit that you can learn about if you want to, but it's not like culturally, it doesn't culturally flood the narrative. What does flood the narrative is the volume of shit he unhinges on all of us. I mean, and look, I'm sometimes on board. Like, I own a digital copy of The Airplane Flies High, which is like a fucking 4-hour 100-song collection of like assorted demos and B-sides and stuff from the 90s era. And so I'm in with the Pumpkins. And like I said, I still have that romantic attachment to their classic era. And when we record our discography reviews, I will go to bat for parts of both Machina 1 and 2, and Oceania, and even some assorted tracks from the other albums. But what I can't defend on a artistic level is the existence of this record. It boggles the mind, it defies logic, and more than anything else, it just discredits you from any kind of legitimacy in the artistic world. So many of the worst songs the Smashing Pumpkins have ever released are on this album. A frankly hilarious number of them, considering the fact that it's not like the Smashing Pumpkins don't have other really bad records and other really bad songs and B-sides and shit. But it's just staggering how many of the worst are here. What's especially funny about Sear is I did read going into this that Corgan's mindset with this project was that he's consistently been frustrated by critics' responses to his post 2000 releases, and he sees it. The chief complaint has been that Billy no longer sounds current. He no longer fits in with the music of the current time or whatever. He sounds dated, and so his response to that. So he said that Sear is my attempt to address that criticism, that I sound dated and that I sound like I'm from a different era by making, the music of the current day. And what's funny about that, and you can all see it already, obviously. What's funny about that is that this sounds dated to an earlier era than any of his music sounds before it sounds dated. So it's like in attempting to make something that sounds modern, he makes something that sounds older than anything else he has ever made. It's a pure 80s synth pop. It's an attempt to be Depeche Mode, but with none of the grit, none of the immediacy, and none of the emotion. Like that's the thing about the experience of listening to Sear, is that you've all described in beautiful detail how dull this album is and how lifeless it is, but it's really strange to me because I can tell that Corgan means it. Like, he's not really, like, in his mind, he's not phoning anything in here. He's putting his all, as he sees it, into all 20 of these songs, which is why it's so incredible how emotionless and just empty they all feel, even when I try to get on his level with them, which is frankly generous of me. But I wanted to understand it, because frankly the banal senselessness of it initially was too much to bear. I needed an explanation, and in seeking one, I find myself only with more questions and more frustrations. Genuinely, I mean this. I don't understand how this exists. Not just as a series of poor judgments, as I've stated, but as an actual experience, as a phenomenon. It defies logic. I mean, I wrote a bunch of shit on individual songs here and what I hate about them. Things like the Corgan screeching Ramona sounds like an archaic torture technique. The guitars on which sound like fried asshole. The song slams relentlessly like it's trying to force its way into your memory with the assuredness of a blind dog. Starcraft is the single stupidest song Corgan has ever released. The dirgy guitars on Purple Blood are clearly an attempt to approximate Nine Inch Nails by way of Depeche Mode, but sound like an industrial drill burrowing into a concrete toilet. The synth arpeggios in Save Your Tears are ear-piercingly loud, and they mix like oil and water with the blunt bass that hangs lifelessly in the mix. It is one of the shittiest sounding things I have ever heard. The distortion on the drum hits makes them sound like staticky farts. All of the vocals, all of them are mixed too high, especially Corgan on this entire album. Look, I've thrown words around like hubris and ego and vanity project. And if you want any kind of direct aesthetic evidence of that, besides the length of this album, just listen to how loud Corgan's voice is on the whole thing. And yeah, that's where I'm at. You've all said beautiful, you've all had beautifully lyrical insults. I had a few there I just wanted to get out because I was proud of them when I wrote them, but you've all done it so well that I would just be repeating things. But yeah, I've tried to understand this on some kind of, fundamental level, like really understand it. And it's like staring at a dead body and trying to understand death. Like Morgan's corpse comparison earlier, like that's perfect because it is. Like we use words like lifeless to describe music that sounds boring and uninventive and dull, but this is literally like confronting your own mortality.
I had more fun confronting my own mortality than listening to this.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some records where you confront your own mortality in a good way. But this is unintentional.
And look,
man, I wish I was discussing one of those,
and
because that would be so much
to
more
finish
fun.
up. To finish up, August, I know you kind of broached this already. The fact that like this and Sam Hunt's record are like the two nadirs of this year, and I agree. And I've been racking my brains trying to decide which one I hate more because I happen to have heard them both this week. And look, Sam Hunt's album is a monument to psychopathy, to hate, to cruelty, to selfishness. And Sear is exactly the same thing, but it's twice as long. And that's the only reason why I hate it more. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Yeah.
The Smashing Pumpkins should apologize to us.
Like individually.
I would like to speak to Mr. Pumpkins.
David S. Pumpkins.
I'm David Pumpkins.
All I know with any certainty is that somewhere Darcy Retzky is laughing her fucking head off.
Yeah. Well, man, that's assuming she's alive.
I want to get the magic pen that Mrs. Umbridge has in the Harry Potter films and get Billy Corgan to write with it, "I will not make bad music 50
I will not
times.
make music. Period.
Yeah. I don't even want to hear good Smashing Pumpkins if such a thing is even conjurable after this point.
I have Siamese Dream. It's okay. It's done. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
You know what?
This band changed my life in some ways. It's fine.
The thing is, and I guess I differ from Morgan here, but I know Jake said something along the lines of like, I feel nothing for this band really, even though I love Siamese Dream and all that and stuff, and so I don't care if we never hear them again or whatever. But the thing that really makes this hurt is that if he does put out Melancholy 3, I know I'll listen to it because I'm broken like that.
Yeah, that's really what I was getting at, because I'm not covering it on the show. I refuse. Yeah. I will listen to it.
That's what's so hurtful about this, is the fact that no matter what he does, like a fucking dog, I will come back, tail between legs, and say, okay, Billy, maybe this time I'll give it a go.
Like a dog with a bird in your mouth.
No, Sam Hunt, I never have to interact with his music again in my life. And I am very happy with that. And this, I mean, if I ever go back and end up enjoying those older Smashing Pumpkins albums, maybe I will feel that same sense of duty and obligation, but at the current moment it's just looking bleak that I'll find anything in them. I don't know, man.
I would be gobsmacked if you don't at least really like Siamese Dream.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah,
Least
for
favorite
real.
tracks and ratings.
Yes, least favorite
I just-
tracks and ratings.
I'm sorry,
I
I
am
just
not
I need
including
to
a
say
favorites.
real quickly, I just realized I have like one, that abusive parasocial relationships can exist, and two, that I am in one with Billy Corgan.
Yep.
Yeah. Jake.
3 least favorite tracks: StarCraft, Witch, and Ramona. This album gets a 0.5.
August.
Just so I can fill in as many gaps as possible, I'll say Dulcet in E, Minerva, and Adrenaline, if only because those are just completely random songs and it really doesn't matter what I pick. This album gets a 1, flat out 1. This is the first one I'm giving on the show, and this is an album that deserves it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to make some more history for the podcast. So my 3 least favorite tracks are Confessions of a Dopamine Addict, Witch, and Ramona. I guess who fucking cares? For a rating, I really had to think about this one because what I'm about to say is absurd. It makes no sense. And I hate when people are this hyperbolic typically. But I would just... I'd like to read something. Mr. Corgan, what you have just produced is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent album were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. 0 out of 10.
This is a nightmare.
This rating goes down to 0.
Saoirse.
I'm can't be fucking asked to choose least favorite tracks. It's.
I mean,
just getting.
They're all the same song.
Yeah.
They're all the same. Yeah, doesn't
I'm
matter.
giving it a 1 out of 10. It's really bad.
Okay, my 3 least favorite tracks are StarCraft, Save Your Tears, and I'm also going to throw in Tiger as well.
Glad someone did.
And this album gets... I was going to be dramatic about it, but Morgan's already done it. So yeah, it gets a 0. A goose egg from me also.
That's our first
Get the Billy Corgan shirt that says 0 on it. Be like,
Christ.
this is you.
It's
Your
our first
brain's
record to
Billy Corgan.
score below 1, lads. That's our first one.
Well done.
What's the average?
0.5.
Yeah, I mean,
God bless.
wow. Yeah, I mean,
Couldn't be anything else. I
Saint
think.
Anger looking real good right now.
Oh
That was-
God,
that was-
I would. Ugh.
That was as depressing an excursion as the entire second half of Metallica's discography in the span of an hour.
Yeah, I'd scream for Reload or Saint Anger on this, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Saint Anger has funny songs on it. They're not
It's
supposed
got
to be
fucking
funny.
frantic tick 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 tock.
Yeah.
Madly in Anger with You.
Really like with you. Oh, the one of those fun times. Speaking of
Alright.
bad in an enjoyable way.
All right.
Yeah,
So
but
let's
I
move
would
on.
just say we've experienced a moment in history in bad music, and we've been here for that. 0.5 out of 10 record. That's a thing, man.
Are you trying to find an upside here? Like, what are you?
I am trying so hard, so
Like,
hard.
Just
You know
like
what?
accept
I
it
admire
and move
this.
on.
I admire
I-
the spirit, but at a
I-
certain point, we have to cut our losses and leave.
Yeah.
Yep, which
No,
is
this
why
isn't
we're going
worth
to
it.
leave on to the new record
Yes.
from pop sensation, Miss Miley Cyrus.
All right. Okay. So now it's time to review Miley Cyrus's new record.
God, I hope.
Fuck,
this
what's it
review-
called?
Plastic Heart.
Plastic Heart. That's right. Okay. So this is interesting because Miley Cyrus has had an interesting career, like really interesting, really, if, from a narrative perspective, anyway. Because she started off, she's the daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, as everyone knows, and she started off as this Disney diva princess in her own TV show, and she put out music through that venue. I grew up watching Hannah Montana. I'm
I did
not
too.
ashamed to say that. And dug that show as a kid, and even if now I realize it's super cringy.
Emily Osment was hot. I'm not apologizing.
Yeah, hey, we're you
were
and me,
teenagers,
Jake,
man.
We're the same person, you and me, for God's sake. But anyway, yeah. So then she kind of tried to go out on her own and have her own kind of independent music career. She started off as this like sort of power pop is not the right word, but it's like the most appropriate combination of words for her initial career. You know, she had records like Can't Be Tamed and Breakout, these which had these huge massive songs on it, like Born in the USA and The Climb. Like no, regardless of what you think about those songs, they're huge songs.
No.
Yeah.
Born in the USA.
I heard that.
Never mind.
Yeah. Born in the USA.
Genuinely, thank you, Tyler. I needed that. I needed
To
that.
remind me that I could still feel.
It was entirely unintentional, but I'm glad you got something.
Oh,
Yeah, and you know, I even there was actually a bunch of not great necessarily, although they are guilty pleasure songs like "See You Again" and "Seven Things I Hate About You" and "Start All Over" and stuff. I remember hearing those songs as a kid and thinking they were really catchy, and so she had this interesting like career beginning, and then you had bangers happened. And I don't know about you guys, but I remember experiencing that whole era in real time in 2012 and 2013.
That was the first exposure I think I had to the discourse.
Yeah, and you had the very infamous, I should say, VMA's performance with Robin Thicke. I remember the initial release of We Can't Stop. I remember the discourse is exactly right for what happened as a result of that. And then I remember Wrecking Ball coming out, a song which I fucking hated when it came out and still do, but I recognize as this moment for her and her career, a kind of statement that she actually had the capability to make these huge sounding and emotionally intense songs that would you know instantly get the public's attention. And Bangers is a hot mess of an album. I actually don't think it's terrible. It's pretty bad, but like it's not quite as bad as you might expect it to be from going into it with all of that. But it's it's something. It's a culturally interesting artifact. And it somehow just gets even more weird from there, because then you had her Flaming Lips collaboration, Miley Cyrus and her Dead Pet, which was a result of sort of falling in with that kind of scene of like heavily druggy and kind of like
Bad.
1968 throwback shit. Like, anyway, yeah, it's a bad album, no question. It's 90 minutes long. But again, it's like interestingly strange, not just like bad in the way that what we just talked about it's bad, but like fascinating.
No,
And
it definitely is. If you've listened to like any part of it, you remember it.
yeah, but I still would like, I would put my hand on my heart and say it's not as bad as Sear remotely. It's just
Oh no.
it's just
Why they put the dick in the pussy?
yeah, it's funny. And there are some good songs on it actually. Like there are not many of them, but there are. And I remember like, Do It. I remember when that came out and seeing that's one of the worst songs of the decade. And I remember seeing the video for it and hearing her talking about how she loves smoking weed and the video was just her basically getting splooged on for 3 minutes. And so this was an interesting wrinkle in the narrative. But then you had her completely step away from this. Clearly some kind of behind the scenes intervention was had. And in 2017, she put out this completely anodyne, dull record of country songs called Younger Now, incredibly clean shit that no one remembers. Even people who've heard this record have no recollection of it.
I did not know it existed until this very moment.
Exactly. She put out a incredibly sappy and basic country record in 2017 in an attempt to kind of overhaul her image, her Joanne, if you will.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah. And I mean, look, it came out the year after Joanne, so I'm almost entirely convinced that she just saw that and said, "I'm going to copy that. That's what my move's going to be." And it's interesting as well. Like, if you want to continue that parallel and see like bangers as her art pop, even though art pop is legitimately a good record, and you want to see Plastic Hearts, which we're about to talk about, as her Chromatica, which again, it's not an analog that fits well in terms of sound, but in terms of like the way a huge mainstream artist tries to construct a narrative about their sound. There's kind of some similarities. Also in the fact that they're both like huge 80s throwbacks in very different ways. But anyway, I know I took a long time to get to this, but I just find that whole narrative progression really interesting. Plastic Hearts. Definitely the most likable Miley Cyrus record yet, I think. It's a frustrating fucker of an album, like, because
That it is.
I think that what it is, again, it's like the fourth time in her career where she's tried to completely overhaul a previous image or narrative. Although, in a sense, it's kind of like she's doing that, but she's also kind of bringing in some of the aesthetics of shit that she's done before, except she's cleaning it up, polishing it, trying to give it more legitimacy. And as a result, you have lots of critics and sort of people in music journalism lapping it up, and understandably so. I feel like this is the kind of direction that Miley was sort of always meant to go in. And I have to say that aesthetically it fits her quite well. I know earlier this year I only learned about this. Somehow I missed it in the news cycle, but I learned about it yesterday. That earlier in this year, she apparently had some viral success or buzz that was created from covers that she did of Blondie's Heart of Glass and the Cranberry Zombie. She did covers of them in a studio session, and people were like, whoa, okay. She got pipes. And I mean, she always has had pipes, but like it's actually quite life affirming to hear how well and amazing Miley Cyrus's voice sounds in 2020. And I think this whole narrative that I've kind of talked about in terms of the shit that her career has gone through, that dominates the, conversation about her and her music so much that it's easy to forget the fact that she is an incredibly talented singer. And so I see Plastic Hearts as an attempt, one, to kind of find a comfortable place for her as a personality in popular music, a niche that she can kind of settle into after all of this crazy shit that's happened in the last 10 years with her, but also an attempt to remind people how incredibly talented she is as a singer and to actually put that to good use. Which is why it's so frustrating that Plastic Hearts isn't great. I mean, you could even debate whether it's good. I'm kind of on the fence. It's incredibly frustrating that I don't like this more. I'm really annoyed that I don't, because I love what it represents for Miley as a move. I think that it's a really smart move. It's just that the songs, for the most part, with some exceptions, are not there. What the fuck do I know? It's actually a pretty strong opening track, I think. It has a delightfully thick bass line, and there's a lot of those on this record, actually. It gives the whole thing a real edge that I kind of appreciate. It's that kind of chunky bass is kind of missing, I think, from a lot of popular music now. You have that kind of synthetic bass sound, but you seldom get this real chunkiness that I kind of appreciate. And again, it's a real part of that kind of like 80s power pop aesthetic. The song has an explosive chorus. It has lots of energy. Miley is really good on the hooks. I really dig that song. I think the title track is good too, but it's a little bit more generic in its hook and its writing. It's kind of a sign of things to come on the record. I do think that the production remains punchy here, and whoever hits those bass lines is still crushing it. But then we kind of hit a bit of the first of a couple of real dives on this fucker. Angel Like You. Again.
Lyrics. Who, Nelly, does this song have them?
Again, I love what it represents, because Miley has a voice made for this kind of power ballad song. Like she's trying to be Cher or whatever. And it's definitely the kind of thing that she's made to do. But holy fuck, is this just generic and lame and flat. I mean, it gets the emotional point across. It allows Miley to do what she has to do vocally to hit the beats of this kind of thing, but it just lacks any kind of personality outside of the genre template. And that's what's so frustrating. And that encapsulates a lot of the problems with this record, actually. I don't know what a lot of these songs are for, except as in their function to shift perception of Miley to this 80s rock revival goddess.
Yeah.
But you also have the framework of a song like this clashing in a really ugly way with a song like the Dua Lipa collaboration, Prisoner, which has even less personality somehow and sounds awful. It's just a really disappointing song. These are two very talented singers who have, on this record and on Dua Lipa's own record, you can find instances of them singing incredibly well and with charisma, but there's just none of it in this collaboration. Give Me What I Want is a bit better. It has a delightfully synthy bass line that purrs in the mix and reminds me a lot of kind of like synth pop of the 2000s, which actually kind of fits here in this instance, I think, better than it should. Miley flails a bit though on this track still, in some of the more generic trappings that pervade the rest of the album. There's a nod to it. It's hard to say whether it's a nod to or whether it's just an outright rip-off / sample of the iconic Phil Collins drum fill in The Air Tonight in this song, and it has the potential to feel like a cute little throwback, but it actually just ends up feeling really tacky. The chorus is nice though. It's not a bad song. It just is frustrating. As for the Billy Idol collaboration, is irritatingly perfunctory. I was kind of hoping deep down that this would be like a total shit show, because that would be interesting and funny. But it's just flat and fine. derivative in a dull way. Yeah, and and again, it just comes back to that whole thing, this whole issue I'm having. This is a great fit for her aesthetically, but it's like the songs are an afterthought, with one major exception. Both in its original and remixed form with Stevie Nicks, I think that Midnight Sky is a superb song. It has a real propulsive pulse to it. It has great vocal melodies. The production is sharp, and the chorus elevates the song nicely without kind of trying to stretch it too far or be kind of like too intense. It's an exercise in smooth pop songcraft and comparative restraint from Miley. I won't call it one of the best songs of the year by any stretch, but it does feel like the most successful execution of what Miley's going for with this album. However, why are there not more songs like it? I think I'm going to be alone on this next point, and that's fine. But I have to be honest, I actually kind of really love the song High.
No, actually, I'm gonna come to bat for that. I actually really like High as well.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. It has a country twang to it that I think fits really nice and is subtle enough to not sound kind of jarring.
I thought that was a relative high point.
Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. And despite being a slower ballad, it doesn't really feel one note or flat like some of the other songs do. Her vocals really soar on this track. And even if it is like derivative in the ways a lot of the other rest of the record is, the difference is this song feels earnest. Whereas other tracks that try a similar thing don't feel like she's really committing to the bit. And then the rest of the originals on this record are just whatever. They range from whatever to what are you doing?
Bad Karma.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about Hate Me or Golden G String, or I think there's another one that I'm forgetting. But
Never Be Me.
Yeah, that one. They're just boring.
I kind of like this song.
I mean, Hate Me kind of sucks, actually.
Yeah, I have thoughts, honestly.
I'll let you get to that. But yeah, Bad Karma is just a fucking travesty of a song.
God.
You bring Joan Jett. You bring her onto this track. And what?
On the day of my daughter's wedding.
Yeah, look, I've said enough. I want to let someone else tear into this bitch. I'm going to shut up now.
Can I go next, actually? Because there are 2 points that I don't want to forget.
Okay,
You just reminded me of.
Just saying.
The first one is if you want to see something good with Miley Cyrus and Joan Jett, I've talked about it before on this podcast. There was a video online of both of them with Laura Jane Grace doing an acoustic version of True Trans Soul Rebel and I think Androgynous by The Replacements.
Yes.
Oh, I'd watch the fuck out of that.
Yeah, the Androgynous cover is very good. Yeah.
And the other one is I find the song Golden G String interesting in retrospect because I read an interview with Miley today that I think our mutual friend Cole tweeted about, where she said that every album before this, she was sort of denouncing the album before that and trying to do that over. And she thought that this was the first album where she didn't really do that. And then you listen to a song like Golden G String, where she's like, well, I've done all of that sexy stuff, but this ain't me anymore. And it stinks of like rank hypocrisy. And this is sort of
it just doesn't feel genuine. Like she's trying to be sexy on a lot of this album. Like she's trying to have that sex appeal of those 80s diva rock
and
goddesses.
also, this album is as much a constructed identity as any of those previous records were.
Yeah, obviously, but that's just pop music and the pop music business.
No, sure.
I only care as much as I believe there's an earnestness to the desire.
No, but this album feels like as much as like a posture as any of those previous records are, and so obviously like that, and that she's trying to do that like almost Joan Jett like riot girl thing, where it's like, yeah, I'm like edgy, aggressive, but I have like pop appeal, and I'm here as like the person that the alternative girls are gonna like in the pop. I'm your Avril Lavigne, but like edgier because I'm trying to be, and it's just not working very well. But and it feels like a pose to me as opposed to an authentic expression of like you look at Jared Way's more out there personas, they all felt like they were coming from the same Jared Way, if that made sense. But anyway, Jared Way is a better maximalist artist than Miley Cyrus. What do you know? Anyway, well, I don't have much to say on this record. I think it's broadly fine and mostly forgettable. I agree that her sort of remix of the Stevie Nicks song has this wonderful driving propulsive feel to it. But I feel like that's from the Stevie Nicks song that it's remixing. And I would rather be listening to it. I do feel like on those covers that are included on this album, those other ones like The Heart of Glass, she does bring some astounding vocal chops, and I almost feel like these covers herald a Miley Cyrus identity that could really work, of doing this kind of more authentic sort of female diva rock music, like that Riot Girl music. If she did that with more authenticity that these songs that she's covering has, I might like her music a bit more. I find Miley Cyrus an intensely interesting person and presence, and occasionally she will do a thing that I think is like either really interesting or fascinating or just brilliant, and like says something that I think is really interesting. But that's in between of projects that I find just vaguely insipid. It's not to say this record's bad. It has lots of really good moments, but when it's a Miley Cyrus original, it's like a mishmash of lots of different genres and ideas, from like country to these rock guitar solos to these very like pop beats, and it barely ever comes together for me. It's fine, but it is like intensely forgettable, and there is nothing that I can really hold on to about it for the most part.
Yeah, honestly, like, I feel like a lot of maybe my I sort of gave off the vibe that I thought this was like awful, and I don't think it's awful. I think it is a mixed bag that favors negativity. And that's for a couple reasons, honestly. Like, again, like Tyler, I in theory like this as like a concept, just because I've always thought Miley's vocals have suited that more powerful like vibe more. And it's funny that Tyler mentioned Wrecking Ball, because I largely have a lot of the same issues with that song as I do a lot of songs on here. And it's just that like the raw belting power of Wrecking Ball is not an inherently bad quality to have in your voice, but it's like it's all she does with her voice on this album. It's all she does. And I'm like, look, honey, you got a dynamic range. Please use it. She just delivers it in the same way. Every single hook, every single line, every single song. It's just like, all right, I get it. You can belt. Rein it in a little.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is going to be a hot take in these parts. But I do not care for the Heart of Glass cover at all.
Wow. Okay.
I won't lie, I don't either.
For the
me.
exact reason that you're saying, it reminds me of Shinedown's cover of Simple Man by Leonard Skinner, because it's like,
yeah,
why are you yelling this at me? Please stop.
I do have that, like, I won't even say that I dislike Heart of Glass. It's just that like a lot of the parts work for me. It's just that like she's over singing like everything, and I'm like, oh man, if you just pull it back to earth, and you've got something. I think that honestly that the front half of the record is like severely disjointed in how much I enjoy the songs. The second half I think is fine. I'm a bit more just whatever on some songs. Like I don't think "Hate Me" is very good, um, but uh, and "Bad Karma" is an astonishingly bad song. Like, oh, terrible, annoying. The little vocalized like that are it's gross.
I
Stop.
didn't like it
No.
when Fleetwood Mac did it on Big Love. I don't like it now.
It
If
sounds like
it's a
I hear Joan Jett making those vocalizations, and I don't think that's sexy. I think get this woman a ventilator right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
like this is
seriously, it's like she
this
sounds like she
woman is
needs
like
help.
70.
Like, please.
What is happening?
I don't want her to be upset. Um,
Do not die.
I I will say, like Tyler, I do think it has some decent points on it. I think Midnight Sky, decent song. Hi, one of the better songs on here, definitely. I gotta admit, I have a slight fondness for Never Be Me, just because it comes from a definite place of sincerity. And I will be honest, as much as I like the idea of rock Miley, I just think she's better when she's a little bit more low key on here, just because it sounds a lot more sincere, and I get with that. But I just sort of kept listening to this, and I was just like, this is not a particularly difficult thing to listen to. So why do I still feel like, you know, I obviously don't care for it, but like, why? There's something I'm not getting here that's really pushing me towards that more emphatically. And Tyler did a great job at pointing out, like, I broadly agree with him on pretty much everything, but it's in the way that this is sort of like, everything she's done is, and pop music in general, it's all a costume, it's all a show, it's all how well you put on that particular costume. And of her albums so far, she has worn this costume the most convincingly. So, props to her for that. But she still hasn't pulled it off completely. And in such, she's sort of constructed a weird chimera of an album here where her persona, I don't think, is fully realized, but there's a recurring theme on the record. And that recurring theme is kind of what bites it in the ass for me. Because the theme of the album is very clearly, I am emotionally damaged and I have like all these problems and I can't stop myself from doing all these things and fucking up. Like all of the time, like on the more sincere tracks, it's just like I feel bad, but it is inevitable that I am going to fuck up this relationship because I'm unfaithful, I cheat, I lie, I'm bad, I do all these things, I party, I drink, and I can't help it. And there's like a semi-tragic nature to that. And when she's sort of like leaning into that, that's cool. I like that. And again, not an inherently bad thing when you do your songs like "What the Fuck Do I Know," which is a pretty enjoyable song, or "Plastic Hearts." Very specifically, I sort of saw that as reading about her relationship with Liam Hemsworth that went through. It's little callous there, Miley, and that's honestly kind of what rubs me the wrong way. And I get that that's kind of petty, but hear me out. Um, I just don't like hearing songs where people brag about hurting people. And I get that a lot of it is self aware and a lot of other songs acknowledge it, but some songs on here just exist to be blatant, like really emphatic. Oh, fuck you. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care about you. I never cared about you. And I'm just like, I I have had a hard year, man. I have had my heart put through the ringer multiple times recently, and with my fun, punky rock music, the last thing I want to listen to is to hear some famous person brag about how good they are at making people feel like shit. And there's a difference when you do it and you're like, you do it on an album like After Hours, an album I
I was gonna
love.
say that's
There's
what that album is more or less
Yes,
dedicated to.
that is what that album is about. Except 90% of After Hours is Abel talking about how he sucks and how he hates himself. And, like, Monster is one song on there. And the rest of it is a bunch of sincere, heart on my sleeve, I'm sorry I hurt you. And then this is just like the best you get is, oh, I'm this way. Oops. And I'm like, man, you're not like leaning into this, and that's why I'm not too mad at it. I'm not taking off points for it, but it makes the songs that are like relatively kind of enjoyable. They don't hit any like super significant highs for me, but the ones that I do enjoy, they give themselves a ceiling again. I'm just like, you just don't do this in a nuanced enough way or in a confident enough way. Like, Abel's been doing this since fucking House of Balloons, man. That's why he can do it and make it work. Miley, on the other hand, is again, it's a new costume for her. She's doing a good job at wearing it, but she's gotten a little bit too drunk and full of herself to keep it on convincingly the whole night. It's not an album that I would hate listening to again, but it is just too abrasive at points where I'm just kind of like, you could do something I like with this, and you just kind of aren't.
Yeah, something that just occurred to me thinking on this is that this album, in terms of what it represents, and also some of the ways that it sounds, uh, reminds me a lot of Kesha's Rainbow, which came
Yeah,
out in 2017, I think, or 2018, one of those two, which is an album I like quite a lot, actually.
I do
I think
too, honestly.
I think
I
it's
think it's very good.
one of the better pop records of that year.
It is
Um,
also home to likely a strong candidate for the greatest pop song of the decade, and
yeah,
Praying.
obviously. There's a lot of great songs in there. There's like a couple of combinations,
That's, you,
couple
you want to
combinations.
you want to talk about a vocal powerhouse.
Oh, Praying, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like Miley can't. No,
So
sorry,
that's
hun.
that's heart-rending ballad, but also she's got on that album collaborations with Eagles of Death Metal, which is Josh Homme's
Yeah,
other band. Um, and so that's an album that's really fun, and it has this kind of
the
like rock,
guitars sound great.
yeah, and there's this
So
rock
good.
diva energy to it. And then there's
Yeah.
tender moments as well, and there's self-reflection, and there's kind of relationship stuff that she goes into, and all of it is this aesthetic palette cleansing from the previous era of her career. And so it's interesting the way I can't believe I didn't think of this while I was listening to the Miley album, but it's
Yeah,
interesting the
me too.
way that this kind of parallels that, except Plastic Hearts is less successful in trying
Yeah.
to do what that record does.
And like I feel like the Kesha albums before Rainbow were always kind of like I feel like she was in on the bit, you know?
Yeah,
It
like I mean,
was
there's obviously the whole thing with Dr. Luke making her like play into that and stuff for like success and
yeah.
chart and what but whatever, but it's like when I listen to those it's like I can't like these have such low ratings on like music aggregate sites and I'm just like these really aren't that bad, guys. Like they're not great, but they're tacky and ostentatious and
They're
explosive and poppy and dumb, but like is it trying to be anything other than that?
what
No.
they are is of their time as well. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that
they're gonna
too.
sound a bit dated looking back on them now, but they represented something in their time, and they're attached to that in a way that's kind of nostalgic for me anyway.
No, I agree.
But anyway, just a parallel that I thought was interesting.
No, totally. I see it.
Who wants to
So
leap in?
I'll go ahead.
August
Um,
and Morgan, the two people least likely to enjoy any of this.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I feel pretty much exactly the same way that everybody else does so far. This is harmless.
Yeah.
It's fine. I have no business listening to it, and I do not care. I don't find her to be intriguing personality. I don't think she's a particularly good writer. Her voice is impressive when it suits the mood. But I have no strong feelings on this. I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I didn't also really not enjoy it. I guess I do lean a bit more negatively just because of the occasional bad karma, you know.
Yeah.
But this is mostly just perfectly acceptable with the occasional misfire, and I have trouble getting up in arms about it in one way or another. So
Especially considering with, what it had to compare with this week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, I suppose I'll just run through this quickly so we can review a good album.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's there are parts of it that are okay. Mostly it just feels like a very pastiche, very put on. It doesn't really speak to me as some genuine expression from her. Like, I could rattle off all these complaints, like how it just never separates itself from its influences in the slightest. Like, Give Me What I Want has this one drum beat that is like lawsuit levels of close to the drum beat on Closer by Nine Inch Nails. It's just absurd.
I think I wrote, yeah, I already said this, but it has, there's a drum fill in there that's just In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. They just take the drum fill from that and they just kind of paste it awkwardly into one of the transitions between verses and choruses, I think, in this song.
Yeah.
But I can see the Closer one too, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like very much he's trying to capitalize almost off of this wave of like super like 80s throwbacky kind of girls get it done attitude that's in pop right now. And you know, it's not like a Jessie Ware where I feel it's just a genuinely good album. It's just kind of I pay no mind to it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much to say about it.
August is a bit
Morgan
out
hit the
of
nail
his-
on the head.
August is a bit
Harmless.
out of his element with girls get it done music.
Girls get
Girls
her done.
finishing the job.
Don't. That's not. No, that's a different thing altogether. I can't believe you're the one who said that, not me.
Does that mean you were thinking it too when he first said it? Because that was the first place my mind went to, was because of fucking Game Grumps. I hate my brain.
I'm not going to say no, but it just seems like something that would fall out of my mouth instead of yours.
I'm not. No,
Yeah.
you're totally right.
You know, it's a fine album. I just kind of mildly dislike it for some of the reasons Jake has brought up already, and I think there's a couple admirable songs on it. That's all.
I
Moving
would like it
swiftly
if she
along.
tried to develop this sound maybe a little bit, like, you know, take another stab at it, Miley. You're good at it sometimes.
Yeah, this is definitely the most stick with it-able of any of her albums.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know
was
what?
that
Hey,
laugh?
more rock songs about girls emphatically kissing other girls, but not in like a haha
True.
Katy Perry way. Miley's just gay and she likes it, and
Yeah.
it's like good,
But
good for you.
The thing about this album is like, if she really truly embraced the things that made the covers that kind of spawned the idea for this album successful, it might be better.
Oh, unquestionably, it would be fucking cool. I would just be like, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
fun little
So basically,
pastiche that she's done.
stick at it, but know your strengths better.
Yeah,
Because a lot of what's on here ain't your strengths, honey.
don't collaborate with artists that you're pulling from. That's
Yeah.
a lesson.
That's the underlying theme.
Like, the Dua Lipa collaboration is not great,
Oh,
but I
no.
would much rather listen to that than the collaboration with Billy Idol and Joan Jett.
Oh,
Oh god. But the things about the Dua Lipa cover is that song consistently has no personality. And then
No,
you
not
listen
at
to the
all.
Stevie Nicks thing, it's like whenever you're hearing a thing from the original song or Stevie Nicks, it's like, wow, this is just better.
Yep.
Dua Lipa's got a nice voice.
so
That's about it.
should we do just
Yeah.
favorite tracks and
Nice.
ratings?
Yeah, let's
Nice.
do it.
A nice ass. Dua Lipa. What?
The silence came in just in time for get a nice ass. Dua Lipa.
This is the single most exhausting episode we've ever recorded.
With Better to Bone Machine.
You beat me to it. I was thinking the same thing about Dua Lipa's ass. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
Oh.
it's
sensational.
we've all seen the video of her and Saint Vincent. We know.
Moving
Anyway,
right
favorite-
along.
Favorite tracks and rating.
Favorite tracks and ratings.
Yeah, Jake.
My 3 favorite tracks are High, Midnight Sky, and Never Be Me. Least favorite track, handily Bad Karma. And I give the album a 4 out of 10.
Neat.
Favorite tracks. WTF do I know? High, and I guess the other one. I don't know.
The other one,
Fuck it.
Midnight
You
Sky,
know.
perhaps.
You know. the
Yeah,
one.
that's it. That's it. Thank you. Least favorite, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Bad Karma's pretty bad. Bad Karma. And I will concur with a 4 out of 10.
Neat.
Well, wouldn't you know? I only really want to shout out one track for the good side. I enjoyed the title track a fair bit. It's not particularly notable, but I still enjoyed it. I would shout out Midnight Sky, but every time Edge of 17 comes on in the song, I'm just like, my God, this is just, it's night and day.
Yeah.
Least favorite, obviously Bad Karma is the worst on here, but I will also shout out the Billy Idol track. No. And also a 4 out of 10.
Neat.
Yeah, everybody go listen to Stevie Nicks' Belladonna, please.
Absolute fuck yeah, do that. I don't really have a horse in this race for any of the songs, good or bad. But it's getting a 5 out of 10 from me.
My favorite songs are Midnight Sky remix with Stevie Nicks. Now, I'll also say Midnight Sky, What the Fuck Do I Know, and High, and the album gets a 5 out of 10 from me.
Nice. So that gives us an average of 4.4, which puts it not great, but the same as Folklore.
Yeah.
This is better than Folklore.
Yeah, I like it more than Folklore.
Tyler and I just like.
I like Folklore more than this, but
Yeah,
you know,
I like
I've
Folklore
come
more
to
than this too.
accept. I've come to
Well-
accept that that's not cool here, so it's fine.
It's,
I don't
well,
give a shit about either, though.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah,
end
I
of
mean,
the
it's,
day.
it's not that it's not cool here. It's that we've all explained our positions in great detail. We just
Yeah.
understand. It's fine.
Okay.
All right, lads. Well, next week we are doing worst songs. And
Get
is it
hyped.
favorite songs or worst albums? What is it?
It's worst week next week, baby.
Worst week.
Ah,
Worst
nice.
songs. and
Worst week.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. I want August to do like a title card, like a B movie, just be like worst week.
But yeah, we're doing our worst songs of 2020 and our worst albums of 2020, but we're also reviewing Mr. Bungle's self-titled album
Yeah,
as
per my recommendation, of
as a cricket
course.
club. So
Mr. Bunghole.
Nice.
you know, yeah, I'm stunned that those two words don't appear on the album at some
I
point.
truly.
Although a
am.
bunghole definitely does appear on the album.
Yes,
itself.
it does.
It most certainly does. Yeah. So yeah,
On that
that's
note-
that's the episode. You know, tell us
Yeah.
what you think of,
Yes, please,
of the albums, and
please let
go
us know
listen.
what you
Don't
think of
tell us what you
Sear.
think of Sear. We don't care.
Tell us if you think we went easy on it, then definitely tell us.
Yeah.
yeah.
Easy.
And also tell us what you think about the Miley record as well, because I'm curious.
It seems to be getting buzz, and it's like I'm kind of glad just because it's like a good. It sends a good message, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway, also watch
yeah.
our record club episode
Yeah.
on Tom Waits' Bone
Tom
Machine.
Waits' Bone Machine.
Yeah,
Yes,
good
we should
album.
record it. It's gonna be
Bone Machine.
Exactly. Okay.
I
Rock
love
over
the title
London.
track on Bone Machine.
Rocco
Rock on
Chicago.
Chicago. Verizon. Can you hear me now?